So we've made it to part 2 of the complete guide to computer flipping. Hopefully we've gotten your plan all worked out, and now that you have all the parts that you want to purchase, we're going to go over purchasing said products and the different ways you can go about doing that. You could argue that this part and part 1 could be swapped, the planning and purchasing parts, due to the fact that you might get a good deal on something and then build a project or a plan off of that. That is what I tended to do early on, is I would get a good deal on a core component and then build off of it. So that's some little switcheroo that you might want to keep in mind, but from start to finish, purchasing definitely comes after the final plan is in place, so we'll go over that as well. Again, any of the information that you're looking for in this video will be time-stamped so you can scroll around and find what you're looking for, or they will all be in the description of the video. That way you can jump to whatever you're interested in or try to come back and refer to a spot if you're looking for it. With that said, let's get into purchasing. What we're going over exactly today is the different avenues of buying, whether that be local or online, and then also going over a few tips or a little bit of advice on how to get good deals and getting through the buying process rather seamlessly. Before we get into those topics though, I want to define a term that I'll be using frequently throughout the video so that there's no confusion over how I'm using the term. That term is average used value, which refers to a used component and how much it averagely goes for in the used marketplace. A good tool for finding out what the average used value of a component is eBay, due to the fact that there's such a global amount of buyers and sellers looking for the part. You'll get a very close, semi-accurate value of what those parts are actually worth, whether you're buying them on the local marketplace or buying them online. And that way you can guarantee that when you buy something, if you buy it under the average used value, that you're not getting ripped off in any way and that you're making at least an investment you can make your money back on afterwards. So now on to the actual avenues or ways that you might go about buying things. There's 4 categories that I've broken it down into. It is not an exact science. I've more broken them down into categories just for the ease of explaining it in a video. But those categories are going to be used deals, new deals, used on demand, and new on demand. I will go over what each of those mean and where precisely I use them in the chain of events leading up to a system being built. So likely the first way that you'll go about buying something is used deals. And what this is buying parts drastically below their used value. Whether it being one thing, like you get a graphics card for half price, or you buy a full system at a pretty decent deal, so then all the parts inside of it end up being below used value. Whatever it is, used deals are kind of one-off, occasional finds that you might build a system off of. It might be the foundation of your plan that you then build around, but they come every so often, so you can't rely on them to fill out the rest of the parts you're looking for a build. That will be covered in the later ways of buying. This is more building up your inventory with miscellaneous parts, because whenever I find a good deal, I tend to just buy it, whether or not I have a specific plan for it at that moment in time. I pull from my inventory quite a lot when doing projects and planning things out, so having a good choice or variety of parts from the deals that I've picked up makes it so that I can get all those parts just a little bit cheaper when putting them all together. So to condense that, used deals, occasional finds help bulks up your inventory. You might want to try and get used deals on the core components of a system you're building, such as the GPU or the CPU, which are going to be the most expensive parts of the computer. So getting those at a lower price will significantly boost the amount of profit you make, due to the fact that your parts cost that you're putting into it will be lower than what you were expecting with your budget. So the second way that I go about growing my inventory and kind of casting a wide net of just gathering parts is new deals, which is basically the same as used deals, but you guessed it, they're new products. There are different ways of finding new deals. You'll either have like flash sales or inventory clearance or holiday deals or something like that. A good subreddit to follow is Build a PC Sales. It is a running list or archive of all the different sales going on with new parts, and that way if you see a case or some part that you're looking for go on sale for a decent price, you can pick it up. This is how I acquire a lot of the cases that I use. I'll find them when they're on sale or they have a rebate or something of the like, and I'll pick them up and then I'll use them in builds, and that way I'm getting $80, $90 cases for $40, $50, $60, and I'm saving that extra 20 bucks here and there. And it never hurts to have cases around because you can use cases for any sort of build that you come up with. So again, building up that inventory, having a variety to pull from, and just another avenue of getting parts at a cheaper value than average. So third, we're finally getting into filling all the little holes in your plan where you may be missing parts here and there, and that is what I call on-demand used, which probably isn't the best term for it, but I'm not all that creative, so you're just going to have to stick with me. What I mean when I say on-demand used is I want to buy a part at the used value, and I want to buy it now, and I need it relatively soon to fill in the gaps, instead of waiting around for a part to go below average value and getting a deal on it. I used the on-demand function to fill in things that fall within my budget and I just need, such as refurbished hard drives or used motherboards or used power supplies, any of the things that you can save a lot of money on buying secondhand versus buying new. It definitely lowers your part cost by getting the valuable secondhand stuff that allows you to build these systems for so cheap, such as the power supply that we're using. If I was going to buy brand new, would probably be like 40, 50 bucks, somewhere around there, depending on what deals you can get. But buying it used, I could pick it up for $25. So there shows a great reason to go with on-demand used versus buying everything new. Of course, there are some things where the values are so similar that it's not worth buying used and you may as well buy it new, but we will cover that in depth later. But that is on-demand used, another section of covering all the little parts that you might need. So finally, and kind of my last resort for buying parts, is buying things on-demand new, which I'm sure you are all familiar with. It is buying parts from Amazon and Newegg and the like. This is basically when you're running with like one or two things left that you need to finish your project, such as case fans or an LED strip or RAM or whatever you haven't picked up used yet. This would be the section to then buy new parts because they're always going to be available and you can just hit that buy button, they'll show up and they'll work. So that is the last step or avenue of getting all the parts you require. And with this last step, you should be able to get everything you need. So now that we've covered the different ways of buying, I'm going to go into more detail on how you can get deals, how you should buy, and different things like that. So how do I get deals? I'm sure you've all seen the videos I've posted showing my pawn shop deals, my graphics card deals, and all the different things that I get for oh so cheap. And you're asking, how do I go about doing things such as that? Well, I'm going to split my advice for this category into two. There's going to be deals buying locally and deals buying online. The online portion might be a bit shorter because the online marketplace is a bit rough to get fabulous deals on. It is possible, but much harder. But we will be going over locally first and then online. I think locally is a better way to go, but we'll get into that. So this section is going to mirror one of my older videos called How I Buy quite a bit. So if you've seen that video, you are going to hear this information twice in a row, and I apologize. But I like to break down my advice for buying deals locally into three different sections. So the first piece of advice, and arguably the most important, is the more time and energy you put into looking over your local marketplaces, the better the chance is that you'll actually find those deals first and be the first real buyer to message the seller. This piece of advice kind of falls on deaf ears sometimes because people are like, oh, I can't spend 40 hours a day on the marketplace. And obviously no one can. Since I do this as a job, I'm assuming I spend a bit more time perusing the marketplaces than someone doing it as a hobby at this point. But the ways that I try and keep myself constantly checking it is when I'm doing work on the computer, I have it on a second monitor. When I'm waiting for something to microwave, I'm checking it on my phone. You can find parts of your day where you're just waiting for stuff to happen and you're scrolling through Reddit otherwise. You can then go over to your Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist or whatever local marketplace app or website you prefer and just take a quick look. And if you see anything new pop up that piques your interest, make sure to be one of the first people to pursue that purchase, and you'll have a much better chance of actually getting them, and you won't miss the deals that are only up for an hour or two. So the second piece of advice, and perhaps maybe the most important, I will let you decide, is do not let the price tag on a listing gatekeep you or limit you in messaging the seller. If you look at an item that's listed and it's $20, $30, $50 over what you think it's worth, you can always message the seller and give them the price that you're willing to come in at and see if they'll go down lower. With a used marketplace, haggling and lowering the price is kind of an accepted part of the transaction and the communication between the buyer and the seller. This also kind of helps if you've seen a posting up for quite a while, like a week or two, and the seller still hasn't sold it. You can always come in at a lower price, and if you make it convenient for them, they might just say yes. At the end of the day, the worst they can say is no. So kind of shotgun approach, messaging everyone that you think that might come down is a good way of finding deals here and there, and occasionally you'll get that one that says sure, and there you go, you got your deal right there. So the third piece of advice, and again, maybe the most important, is being very direct in your communication to the seller. When you're trying to buy something and you find a good deal on something, you don't want to drag out the communication longer than necessary, because each message that you send gives the seller a chance to be like, I don't like this guy's wording, I don't like this guy's profile picture, this guy's taking too long, he asks too many questions, and they'll simply cut off communication. When purchasing things, sellers can be very finicky about what rubs them the wrong way, especially people that are rather skeptical of meeting people. They might feel that you're asking too many questions and it's a little concerning to them. So keeping it direct is very important. Early on, I made this mistake and I've found much more success in using this kind of rule of thumb. The rule of thumb that I'm referring to is 3 messages. The first message that I send to a seller is, here's what I'm offering, here's where I can meet, here's when I can meet. Message back if you're interested. Their reply is yes or no, or maybe adjusting the price or the location, and then the message back from me is confirming it, being confirming the price, where we're meeting, what car I'm driving, and then that's it. 3 messages and you've secured a purchase for an item. Perhaps you might want to follow up if you're meeting them the next day and be like, I'm on my way or I'm here. But beyond that, there really isn't a lot more communication you need, unless, of course, they ask you questions or have other concerns to bring up. Obviously, answer those and be polite. But direct messaging has given me a lot of success in getting a deal early, getting the messages in early, and securing buying it very quickly. And then it doesn't give anyone else the option to snag that deal from me. That's how I do it. So those are the 3 ways that I would recommend getting deals when looking around on local marketplaces, but there's more to just local marketplaces to get your local deals. Another way that I've gotten a lot of really lucrative deals for myself is word of mouth. The way I keep that going is any of the buyers, sellers, or customers that I have, I keep a good relationship with and I keep good communication with, so that way if they ever need help in the future, or they come buy more items to sell, or they know a friend's cousin's sister's dog's wife's 3rd cousin that's selling a graphics card, they know who to message about computer stuff because I am the computer guy in their mind. 2 great examples of this is one customer that I sold to, his friend upgraded his graphics card and then gave my customer his old graphics card. He then wanted to upgrade the computer that I had sold him, and he traded me that old graphics card for an upgrade. In this whole roundabout way, I ended up getting a graphics card for less than what I would have paid for it on a marketplace. There's a great way of getting a local deal without having to go through a marketplace and using word of mouth. Another great example is my cousin's coworker was into Bitcoin mining quite a while ago, and he ended up stopping for whatever reason, and he had all these graphics cards sitting in his garage that he didn't feel like selling. He didn't want to do the research for their value, he didn't want to list them on eBay, he simply wanted to get rid of them, but he didn't want to throw them away because that's absurd. And so my cousin mentioned that I bought graphics cards. He said, hey, if he wants to buy them for whatever price, have him shoot me a message. A little bit of communication later, and I picked them all up for much lower than I would have paid buying them on a marketplace, because I'm providing that ease of sale to him. He doesn't have to list them or know anything about them. He just puts them in a box, hands them to me, and I hand him money. So being easy to work with, or making it easier on the seller, is another great way of providing value and getting things lower. Sometimes you might have to go out of your way for this, like driving far or meeting somewhere weird, or whatever way you can make it easier for them. If you make it easier for them, they're more willing to work with you on changing prices or giving you better deals. So word of mouth is very important in purchasing. It's also very important in selling, but we will cover that when we get to the selling part of the series. But always, always try and keep a good relationship with everyone you interact with, because you never know who knows somebody who knows someone who has something for you. And also, being nice is just good. So be nice to everyone you deal with, because that's just what you should do. So now we're finally getting to the buying online portion, and again, this is going to be rather brief, and again, I cover this in my How I Buy video, so if this is information you've heard before, I apologize. It's just going to happen. Buying online is much harder to get fantastic deals versus getting okay deals, simply due to the fact that you have so many competitors on eBay and other online used sites that it's very, very difficult to be one or two of the only people who actually find the deal. You probably at any given time have hundreds of people looking at a deal you're interested in. If there's an auction that is much lower than the average used price, there's plenty of people watching it and bidding on it and saving it on their desktop. So it's very, very difficult to catch that one sly deal that slips in there, but it is doable. One of the tools I use to pick up decent deals at a fairly consistent basis is the eBay saved search feature. This is a feature that is fairly simplistic, but I don't see a lot of people showing or referring to. Basically, if you're searching for a specific item, for this example, we'll type in the GTX 1070, and you go to the left-hand side where all the filters are. Maybe you only want them in the US, maybe you only want them under a certain price, maybe you want them working, maybe you want them in a box. Whatever filter search terms that you want to use, you can set that up. Hit the little heart icon, which then saves the search for you, and then you can set up to get email notifications whenever a new listing pops up within these search terms. And that way you are at least one of the first maybe 100 to see the post and potentially buy it, but it definitely helps you instead of just kind of searching eBay at random times hoping to find a deal. I have a couple of these saved searches going on at any given time because I'm always interested in picking up like motherboard combos or power supplies or graphics card lots. Anything that I'm interested in picking up consistently, I'll make a saved search for and then let eBay notify me whenever there is a new listing popping up. Other places online to find good new deals is EVGA Midweeks Madness, which is their way of getting rid of their B-stock components such as refurbished power supplies and the like. There's also NZXT Refurbished, which is their way of getting rid of their B-stock components. There's also PC Part Picker, which is a website that helps you compare different prices between different websites, see the price history of certain items, and many, many more things. There's also the Reddit Build a PC Sales subreddit, which is a running archive of all the different sales going on at a given time. You can also just look at like RAM or laptops or power supplies or GPUs within that subreddit, which allows you to then see all the GPU deals in the past couple days. Those are all great tools to use to find good new deals online, and that's generally what I'm surfing throughout my day periodically. So that's all the different avenues and ways that I go about buying things. One thing that I like to mention whenever I give advice that's kind of loose advice such as buying is that all the different things I say are not set in stone. Most of the advice and tips and things that I give have to be changed, tweaked, manipulated for each person's marketplace. You'll find different ways of doing things that help you out. My suggestions are basically just that. Suggestions for you to work off of and ways that I've seen success. So again, if you need to change a few things, don't feel like you're ruining the video or advice that I'm giving you. Just find ways that it works, and if what I say works, great. If you need to change it, great. But that is the more informative part of the video done. If you're just following this as a step-by-step guide, then perhaps you're done with the video. But now we're going to get into the example build that we're following throughout each part of this video. I'm going to go into the different parts, how I got them, the different ways I used to buy them, and so on and so forth. So the initial deal that I worked off of to start this project is this GPU. I picked it up in a whole system for relatively cheap and then used all the other parts for different projects. And so now I'm just left with the GPU, and given the other price of the components, that got it for a decent deal. So that's where this all started from. So with the GTX 1070, I knew that I wanted to build a system that had a decent upgrade path. That way that if someone wanted to either upgrade the CPU or the GPU down the road, that it would be relatively easy for them. I wanted to go with a Ryzen system, of course, because arguably they're the best with upgradability in mind. So I was looking for a B450 or a X470 chipset motherboard at a decent price to pair with whatever Ryzen chip that I went with. So I just started putting out my little feelers for those kinds of boards, and I ended up picking up this B450 on eBay for a very good price, and that way if they wanted to then upgrade to 4th gen Ryzen at some point, they have a motherboard that supports it. The last used part that I actually grabbed was that power supply. I picked it up on a deal for 25 bucks. I honestly can't remember what deal it was. I just know what I bought it for, and I had it. There it is. I wish I could tell you more, but I honestly forgot where I got it from. So from there, I got a couple parts in that new deal category. I picked up this case on sale, and I picked up that SSD for free in a little combo deal package. I ended up sectioning off that I spent $20 on it, but that's a whole other matter. And then from there, I picked up things for new on demand. I bought the RAM new. It was kind of a deal, but it's generally the price it goes for. I picked up the Ryzen 5 1600AF for a not so great price, but I needed it to finish the build, so I had to get it. And then I bought a refurbished hard drive, which I guess you could consider new, used. I don't know exactly where that lands. And then the RGB fans that end up going in this case. So with all the different ways that I went about buying, that's how I got all these parts. A mixture of used deals, used on demand, new deals, new on demand, all the different ways that I went about it. That's how we got them. And so now we have all these parts checked off. We have a whole build ready to go. And that is where you should be at the end of this video, having all of your purchasing done, so that the next video we can go into actually building the system and all the little different nuances around that. But that is the end of the video. We have covered all the information. We've gone over the example build, and we're getting dangerously close to having some actual fun and building the computer in the next video. Hopefully you stick around and watch that one with me. Watch it with me. I'm the one making it. Actually, I'm probably going to watch it more than you anyway, so hopefully you stick around and watch it with me. But if you found something informative in this video, hit that like button. If you thought that I rambled too long and my advice is about as useful as gum on the bottom of your shoe, hit that dislike button. If you want to see more and want to see the other parts of this series, the complete guide of computer building, flipping, etc., then hit that subscribe button, and I'll try my best to keep you around. Without further ado, have a good day, guys.